Hello, very warm welcome to the programme. We're going to start in the Swiss ski resort of Davos, where trade tensions have flared up between Britain and the United States at the World Economic Forum. The US Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, has threatened to hit UK car makers with new tariffs. This is after the Chancellor, the Finance Minister in the UK, Sajid Javid, refused to back down over plans to tax tech giants, including Facebook and Amazon. This row comes just over a week before Britain leaves the European Union, with a trade deal with the US a top post-Brexit priority for the UK government. From Davos, our economics editor, Faisal Islam, reports.
The virtual business giants of the tech world have a very physical presence on the streets of Davos at the World Economic Forum, where they need to keep the world's power brokers on side. Taxing them has been tricky and is now a global diplomatic incident, with Britain committed in April to a 2% tax on the UK sales of the likes of Facebook, Google and Amazon.
As we leave,
here, the Chancellor under pressure internationally, in particular from President Trump's Treasury Secretary.
Can they get a trade deal with you if they insist on introducing a digital tax in April?
We'll be having some private conversations about that. I'm sure the President and Boris will be speaking on it as well. You know, if people want to just arbitrarily put taxes on our digital companies, we'll consider arbitrarily putting taxes on car companies.
Another trade power play from the US, the Chancellor, for now, sticking to his guns.
We plan to go ahead with our digital services tax in April. It will fall away once there is an international solution.
Brexit next week means freedom to do international trade deals. What we're seeing here is that freedom is constrained. It requires trade-offs and choices to get those deals. The Americans in particular piling on the pressure for a U-turn on the digital sales tax. The United Kingdom dropping hints that it will prioritise an EU deal before a US one.
That was welcomed by the EU Commission President, who said a quick deal needed quick choices.
Do you think a real deal can be done by the end of the year?
We'll see. It's a question, of course, what the UK chooses for itself. So how close it wants to be to the single market, this is better for a good access to the single market, or if they do not want a line and do not want to have a level playing field, then of course they will be more distant and it will be more difficult.
Everyone says they want trade deals, but it's trade barriers on the up at a time when the UK now needs to make fundamental trade choices. Faisal Islam, BBC News in Davos.
well, let's stay with those global trade tensions, because the body which is supposed to resolve such disputes, the World Trade Organization, is facing paralysis. President Trump has called for dramatic reform of the organization, and the US is blocking the appointment of new judges to its decision-making structure. The WTO's head, Roberto Azevedo, has been speaking to my colleague Sally Bundock at the World Economic Forum. He told her that it will have to make major changes.
It will change, I have no doubts about that. So I don't think that what we were doing before, exactly in that shape, is going to remain. We need to make changes, we need to make pretty significant changes. So it's not an adjustment here or there. Changes will be necessary and may take a little bit of time, but I'm quite hopeful that we'll fix it.
So can you elaborate on what the President is suggesting in terms of change and what you can agree on in terms of change?
I cannot, because he didn't say. He mentioned generally the fact that he feels that the WTO has not been working the way it should, that the US, in his words, has not been treated fairly, and that he wants to see changes, but he didn't specify which.
One suggestion is something that he might like to see in other members is reclassification of China and India, so they're no longer seen as developing countries. Is that something that you would consider, do you think, is necessary?
This conversation is ongoing. It's not the first time we hear about it. The US delegation made the case in Geneva. It raised this issue at the General Council level, and other members are reacting to that.
How concerned are you about the state of global trade right now, given the war we've seen with the US and China? Even here in Davos, the US Treasury Secretary talking of new tariffs, perhaps in Europe.
Well, it's a world that is more unpredictable than before. I think the tensions that we have seen are here for a while. I don't think that there is any kind of agreement that you may reach between countries today that is going to, all of a sudden turn everything, that we're going to be facing blue skies and, easy sailing from this point on. This is going to be rough for a while.
What do you make of the Phase 1 deal between China and the US?
This is a particular agreement that was very much welcome because it kind of signals that these tensions can be contained, they can diminish, because the perspective that we had before was of more tariffs, more trade disruption, more inefficiencies.
That was Roberto Azevedo speaking to Sally in Davos.